Hi you guys, welcome to my YouTube channel and happy Mary Magdalene's feast day. You can watch this at any time, but this video is really in honor of Mary Magdalene, and I just want to share some of my experience of working with her myself for many years now, and also working with her with clients, and just what I feel like she's really good to work with on, and how she can really support you as an ascended master and a personal guide, and some different things that you can do to make a connection with her and to develop a relationship with her. So if it's your first time here, my name is Wilkins. I am a priestess and an oracle. I'm a seer, and I work in the Akashic Records. I'm also an author and a mentor, and I create online courses for people to really tap into their highest power. Right now, most of my focus is on the ancient feminine, and Mary Magdalene is a beautiful representation of that energy. So welcome back if you're coming back. So let's get into it. I've been working with Mary Magdalene probably for about 7 years now, and she definitely has a different frequency than a lot of deities. And the first reason for this is because, first of all, she's not a deity. She's an ascended master, and she walked on the earth. She was a normal human, right? A lot of goddesses that we might work with were never human. They've always been in goddess form. Some of them have been human and then kind of like become enlightened, and so they kind of transfer into a goddess, such as Kuan Yin or perhaps Green Tara. But a lot of goddesses are just said to be like born that way. We can consider ourselves as women walking goddesses, but Mary Magdalene quite literally was human walking on earth, and so she feels a lot more tangible in her support than other goddesses I work with, such as like Lakshmi or Hathor or goddess Isis. She has a more like relatable feeling, and I also consider her to have more of a sisterly energy. So when you work with her, it's not so much working with like the divine mother kind of frequency. It really is like a big sister who is just enlightened and is the feminine Christ. And she really understands the human experience, and that's why I think she is so special to work with. So I call upon her most when I'm in times of deep trauma, when I'm in times when I'm like really at rock bottom, or times that I'm really, really suffering. That's when I call upon Mary Magdalene, and I can feel her help me in a way that is much more tangible than, you know how sometimes like when you have a real life problem and someone gives you like a higher perspective of it, it lands, it's accurate, it's right, but it's not like, it doesn't necessarily help you in that moment, right? We want to have that. We want to be able to utilize that and bring it into our awareness and into our perspective. But sometimes we also need to just have a human moment, and Mary Magdalene is perfect for those moments. She can also bring that higher perspective, but my experience of her is, you know, when you're on the bathroom on the floor crying, or you've been crying about somebody or some situation, or you are just like, I can't do it anymore for whatever reason, it's like she just sits there and holds your heart. She doesn't need you to like think positive or have the right outlook. She doesn't need you to stop being whiny or complaining. She doesn't need you to change your outlook at all. She's just there with you to hold you. And I feel this way about Jesus, about Yeshua also. But, you know, she has a full feminine frequency, so she can meet you anywhere that you're at. And I think that this is it's not so much rare among goddesses, but for example, if I'm like at a rock bottom moment, or I'm like crying about a guy or something, I'm not going to call upon Lakshmi. Like, I love Lakshmi. She's one of my main goddesses I work with, but that's not her area of expertise, right? She's not going to hold me in that trauma experience. Mary Magdalene has, in her human life, went through a lot. So it's like, as an ascended master, she understands the feeling of duality and how difficult that can be, where sometimes it feels like some of the other goddesses, they're not gonna be there and hold you in quite the same way, because they might not actually have a contextual understanding of what it is like to be on a 3D planet. The other really interesting thing about Mary Magdalene is, this is like never talked about, she lived in a time period almost exactly like ours. So, of course, she lived about 2,000 years ago, but the time that she lived in, like, people always forget that Jesus was a political threat to the system. It's not like he wasn't like a messiah walking around at the time. You know, some people may have, like a small group of people might have thought that enough to the point that he was a political threat to the system. But he was seen as a rebel. He wasn't seen in the way that we see him now. He wasn't popular with everybody. Like he was like hated by a lot of people. And we see this a lot of times with anyone who is a major change maker. After their death, they are venerated and honored and revered. But you see this with artists too sometimes, like during their life, they might not have had they weren't seen in the same way as they are after death. And with Jesus, this is a definite, because his entire story was twisted. That's a tale for another day. So Jesus and Mary Magdalene were both living during a time that was very similar to ours, though. They were living in a time where the ages were shifting. So for them, it was the age of Aries, which was the first several thousand years where war and conquest were really present. And they were shifting from that age, the age of Aries, into the age of Pisces, which is the last 2,000 years we've had until you're around where we are right now. Astrologers all have different opinions on when we are actually shifting into the next age. So while they were going from Aries to Pisces, we are going from Pisces to Aquarius. So each of these ages of time are they're like 2,160 years, about that, give or take some. And they each come with major themes, but they were on the cusp of the changing of times, just like we are now, which means that there's a lot of political turmoil, there's a lot of chaos, there's mass changes in consciousness. For them, it was more of a downward slope in consciousness. For us, we're having like a subtle rise in consciousness, and we can absolutely feel that. The fact that I'm making a video about Mary Magdalene wouldn't have happened 2,000 years ago, you know? We're in a different time. But the changing of times are always really intense. They are time periods when there's a lot of tumultuous energy. There's a lot of changing frequencies, which can be difficult on our physical body, and often come with a lot of political turmoil, which we can see. The other aspect of this too is she understands both grief and trauma. So when we're talking about grief, we know from what's written in the Bible, and perhaps from memory, that Magdalene was sitting at the foot of the cross with Mother Mary, weeping and mourning Yeshua. She was said to be the first one who found Yeshua as he had resurrected. He chose her to present himself to, right? She's the feminine Christ. She's the equal of Yeshua. And she understands this deep grief. Imagine seeing the love of your life. And I'm just going to add this in because some people might not know or resonate or have heard about this, especially if Magdalene is new for you, if this is a new conversation for you. I won't say most people, a lot of people believe that Magdalene and Yeshua were either twin flames or counterparts. They were on a mission. A lot of people believe that Mary Magdalene and Yeshua were actually lovers, and that Magdalene was actually pregnant with his child, and that there's a bloodline that comes from that, and there's a huge story that comes with Mary Magdalene. So we're not going to get into that. I have a masterclass, actually, it's only $33, that talks about the history and the mystery of Mary Magdalene, which, if you want to learn more about her, that's actually a really great way to do it, because I have a whole presentation on who she was historically, what we've learned about her from biblical texts, what we know about her from people who have studied her for decades. That stuff is important to understand the context of actually who she is in history, but we want to really ultimately create a personal experience with her. So no matter what you believe in terms of if she was romantic with Yeshua or if she was carrying his baby, whatever, we know that she was sitting at the foot of the cross and that she would have been in deep grief. And at minimum, I don't believe this, I believe they were loves. But at minimum, as a devotee basically of Yeshua, as a follower of him, someone that she highly respected and loved, at least as like a best friend, you know, sitting at the foot of the cross of someone who's nailed to a cross, like, that would be horrifying. That would be so sad. That would be a horrible experience to have, that would leave you traumatized for a long time, right? It would leave you with a lot of grief. And then just imagining like watching that happen. She understands grief at a deep level. She understands the pain of the heart. And this is why she's so excellent to work with when you are in those sorts of situations. Like, she can meet you there. Like I was saying, she doesn't need you to shift or to change or to like, stop being so negative. You know, she doesn't need you. Like, you are perfect where you are. She will meet you there. The other aspect is that she also understands trauma. She was living during a time period where women were rapidly losing their rights. Priestesses were almost, I don't want to say extinct, but they weren't in the same position that they were 1,000 years before, 500 years before. They had lost almost all of their prestige, and they were really like walking on eggshells. So she was in a very scary time period, just like we are today. But for her, it might have been a little bit more so. It's also said that Mary Magdalene experienced a lot of sexual trauma. Now, I don't necessarily personally believe this, because I think most of what's been written about her in the Bible is like with a lot of shade and like just isn't like, it's like white men writing about Native American rituals. Like, they don't know, you know? However, all priestesses experienced massive trauma, especially during her time period, and she was a high priestess, so she would have experienced intense trauma outside of the grief of, you know, what happened with Yeshua. But on a level of being a woman, on a level of being a priestess, she would have had massive trauma. So she can also meet you in that. If you have experienced sexual trauma, she's a great guide to work with to support you in healing that. I love working with her in relation to the heart, in relation to the womb and the sacral chakra. I feel like those are her really like power points in terms of where she can really support us the most energetically. And Yeshua can also, if you want to have a male presence there, Yeshua and her make a great team working on both of those areas. And of course, they bring different energies, but you can also work with her just by yourself. Sometimes I'm like, sorry, Jesus, like it's just a girl thing right now. It's just a woman thing right now. Like, you might only want the feminine energy to support you in that, which makes total sense. And she's really supportive for that. The other thing that she can really support and help us with is understanding our mission. Magdalene had a huge mission along with Yeshua, something that has impacted the entire world. I mean, what percentage of people haven't ever heard of Jesus, you know? And Magdalene has really been like hush hush in the Bible, and it's like she's barely recognized even though she's featured in it, which means that she's an important person in that storyline. She's just, it's very like it's very minimal in the Bible, and this is why it's good and interesting to look at her history as written in the Bible, because we can see how, when we understand like the priestess perspective and the goddess temples and how matriarchal societies worked, and we look at how she's written about in the Bible, it's like, obviously this is an incredibly important person. But if you don't have the context of matriarchal society and the goddess religion and the priestess societies, the priestess temples, you're not going to catch that. Like, it will go over your head. So that's why it's really helpful to have the context of both. So anyways, we know she's an incredibly important person, and that she actually is the feminine Christ. She's the equivalent of Yeshua, just in the feminine form. So she understands mission. And then after Yeshua's time, because either he resurrected or he went off to India to have his own separate mission, different people believe different things about that, she also went off and did a different mission. So she went to the UK and to France. It's said that she passed on in France, in the Cathar area, and she had a different mission there, to spread love and to spread this understanding of the feminine principle and the secrets that have actually been left out of the Bible purposely. That's a different conversation. Like I said, I talk about a lot of this stuff in other videos, and most of my programs I talk about some aspect of this. So you can learn more about that specifically in, let me think, The Priestess Returns and Full Spectrum Feminine. The Priestess Returns is actually, it's a 4-module course that I have about Mary Magdalene as High Priestess, her 4 faces as High Priestess. So all of that can be found in that program. And then if you just want like a little sample, like I said, I have the Invoking Mary Magdalene Masterclass that's $33 that helps you understand a huge amount of the history in like 90 minutes. There's also a really, really beautiful Akashic Records journey in that that you can use a zillion times, and it helps you connect with Mary Magdalene. And the beautiful thing is, I've kind of been telling you how I connect with Magdalene from the perspective of like, you know, when I'm in really traumatic moments, that's when I call on her. When I really need help, when I'm really suffering, when I'm really sad, when I'm really raging, when I'm like, you know, for me, I really feel her presence most when I'm in an intense space emotionally. That's when I feel like she just like runs and she's like, what do you need? How can I help you? Like, let me just hold you, you know, and just emit so much love. However, everyone has a different experience with her, and that's why it's so important to really cultivate and connect with her on a personal level, and you will have your own experience of her. So let me just think if there's anything else that I want to bring into this. I feel like that's really complete. The only other thing that I like wanted to add in is how we can create a personal relationship with Magdalene. Working with the red rose or the blue rose is also one of her symbols, are really powerful. Working with anything around the womb, working with the sacral chakra and the heart. You can call her in using that type of energy. She's also a part of the rose lineage, which is a lineage of goddesses and ascended masters, from the areas of Palestine, Egypt, ancient Sumeria, and Babylon. This is a line of goddesses that come from that area and that have massive history. Like, we're talking, you know, 7,500 years back, if not more than that. These goddesses were worshipped for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, and she comes from that line. And like I said, it's like she's the older sister. So you can imagine yourself working with her as if you are her initiate. She is initiating you. Almost kind of like, I mean, I wasn't in a sorority, so I think it's a totally different vibe, but like if sororities were really sacred, so a priestess temple, the point is where sisterhood is very important, and she's supporting you in your journey of ascension. She's supporting you in your journey of really recovering all of your power and really stepping into your highest potential, but from a very human standpoint, from removing all hierarchy. She doesn't show up with you like she's any better than you, like she's in a higher, like, you know, ring or whatever it's called. She doesn't show up with you like that. She's like, we are equals, let's bring in some healing here. So yeah, she's really magical to work with. And if you want something more specific, get the Invoking Mary Magdalene class. It's like an hour-long class, and then I think a 30-minute Akashic Records journey that is essentially a meditation taking you into the temples of the Magdalene, where you get to meet her priestesses, and you also will meet her. And it's set up in a way, it's like truly, really, really, really beautiful. It's set up in a way that you can do it a zillion times and have different responses from her, have a different experience of her each time you do it. So yeah, I wanted to just do something a little special today for Mary Magdalene's feast day. This is celebrated every year on the 22nd of July. If you're watching this right when I post it, I'm actually speaking on a summit today, and you can catch the replay of it. I'll put the link in the comments below. I'll also put the link for the Priestess Returns. This is great if you're like, I'm ready to go all in with Magdalene. I want to understand her four faces. I want to understand the secrets that people haven't talked about with her, that the church for sure has kept hidden from us, and how I can really start to embody her energy. You'll want to get the Priestess Returns. Those are going to be the two products I have that are most directly related to Magdalene. Full Spectrum Feminine and the Realm of the Dark Feminine are also working with Magdalene's energy, but they're working also with a larger range of goddesses with different archetypes and aspects of the feminine frequency. So that's a larger look at the feminine range and how we can embody different aspects. Magdalene is included. She's not in all of them though. So anyways, I hope you have a happy Magdalene feast day, and let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this, what came up for you, if you want to add anything, share what your experience of Magdalene has been so far in your life. And yeah, sending you so much love. Make sure you subscribe if you liked this, and like the video. That really helps and supports my channel grow and support other people for free. So okay, that's all. Sending you so much love. Bye.